Well, it may be just a balmy 11 degrees up here in Spokane, Washington, but we're going to try and get you warmed up for the West Coast Conference play as the Zags get ready for league play. Coming off a 93-63 win against North Alabama just last night at the Kennel. And as they head into league play, they have a record of 11-2 on the season. Zags have had a couple good wins, couple bad losses. I wouldn't say bad losses. They lost to Duke in a very tough losses. Alabama was a game that it may not have felt as close, but the Zags had a chance at the end to win that one. Do pick up a couple key wins as well. But I'll tell you what, this is a West Coast Conference that is stacked this year. When I say that, it's a conference that hasn't gotten as much respect as maybe it deserves the last 5 years. But this is a legitimate 3, maybe 4 bid league as we look into West Coast Conference play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen the level of play in the WCC continue to rise year after year. Like, even though you said it doesn't maybe get the attention that it should, but this is a strong conference this year. We've seen the WCC really take care of business outside of league play to start the season. So we're going to have some good games coming up here, and we're definitely going to go over all of them.
Well, the Zags have won 9 straight regular season West Coast Conference championships, lost in 2012 to St. Mary's, and they won back-to-back WCC tournament championships, lost in 2018-2019 to St. Mary's as well. Now, conference play was supposed to start tomorrow night, Thursday night. That would have been December 30th, but San Diego is now on COVID protocols. We're seeing across the country several teams going into COVID protocols, so that game against the Toreros will not happen. They will begin the regular season play against LMU on Saturday. But real quick, San Diego, what we don't know is if that game will be made up. They're going to make an attempt to. You look at the two schedules, you don't really see a lot of room there for a makeup game. But if they do end up playing San Diego, tell me a little bit about this Torero squad.
Yeah, this is a team coming in. They're 3-3 through the last 6 games. They're 7-6 on the season, so kind of just been that middling team, if you will, kind of the conference here. Led by senior guard Marcus Ellington, 13.6 points a game as well. So they do have some scorers out there. They can shoot the ball. They're 38% from 3-point on the season, but only 67% from the line. If the game is made up, I don't see this one really being one the Zags have to worry too much about. There's just too much firepower on the Zags.
I think that is the tale of this WCC season. Not that the Zags can't get nipped, but we have seen this can be a vulnerable team at times. You really do have a distinguishable top half versus bottom half of this league. Now, the first game the Zags will play in the WCC is versus Loyola Marymount. That will be Saturday down in Los Angeles. And this is an LMU team, same sort of a deal. I don't think anyone's expecting LMU to beat Gonzaga, but in this first conference game, tell Zag fans what they can look out for in this LMU squad.
Yeah, this LMU squad kind of been up and down a little bit. They're 7-5 on the season. They've got a couple tough losses. They lost to Chattanooga, Florida State by 30, only beat Arizona Christian by 6. So they've got some tough ones in there. But you look at their backcourt, and it's a senior backcourt. Again, you've got guards of Eli Scott and Joe Quintana. Both of these guys can score the ball. Eli Scott's at 15.6 points a game. Joe Quintana at 15.1 points per game. So, again, I think we've seen this year when guards can really score the ball, they can cause some issues for the Zags. But again, you see some of the losses these guys have taken, they would have to play out of their minds to really make it a game. So I don't see that one being one to circle on the calendar.
No, I think we both expect the Zags to handle San Diego and LMU. At the end of this video, make sure you make it to the end because we're going to actually give you kind of our over-under, how we see league play, going as well. So we will talk about that. Yep. And let's go into this next matchup. We're going to talk about a few teams a little bit in depth, and this next one we will. It's San Francisco. This is who I believe is going to be the Zags' toughest test in WCC play. This is a 13-1 team on the year. Todd Golden, I believe, has just done an unbelievable job since he was at San Francisco. Young coach, came in his first year, had success right away, really struggled in that second season, and now his third season at the helm for the Dons has a 13-1 team. And I'll tell you what, Jamari Bouilla is a guy that outside of the Zags roster, this is my favorite player in the West Coast Conference. we thought we were done playing him. The NCAA comes out and gives all players an extra year of eligibility, and he took advantage of that. And I can tell you what, if you're Todd Golden and the San Francisco staff, you have to be thrilled that you have a extra year out of Bouilla.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a senior, like you said, that's averaging over 17 points a game, 5 rebounds as well, 4 assists, 42% from 3. He is exactly the guy that you need to make it tough on the Zags. You need a dominant ball handler and aggressive scorer on top of your perimeter up there. So just a great player all the way around. You love to see them at 13-1. They're one loss to Grand Canyon, who's been a great team this year.
That's a tournament team.
Absolutely. They're 10-2 on the season, and they've kept, even their losses, they've kept close. So the San Francisco team is not one to be slept on at all. They've got the great backcourt. They will make things difficult.
You know, it reminds me of, you see a lot of teams make a run in the NCAA tournament. What do you look for? You look for senior leadership. And you got Bouilla, who's a fifth-year starter on this team. This is a team that I believe could make a potential run into the second weekend in the NCAA tournament if they are able to stay healthy and make it there. After that, so that they will play the Dons. You know, Gonzaga plays San Francisco on a Thursday. They'll follow up at a Saturday contest at the Kennel versus Pepperdine. This is a 6-9 Pepperdine team. And we talk about, circle the San Francisco game. That's going to be a tough one. I don't think we're necessarily giving Pepperdine the same credit as we're giving San Francisco.
Not quite.
Give me the Cliff's Notes version on this Pepperdine squad.
You know, this is, again, an up-and-down team, man. They're 6-9 on the season, but they are 4 out of their last 5 after losing a 6-game stretch here earlier in the season.
Yeah.
So kind of starting to put things together a little bit, playing better ball by their standards. But again, we talk about needing firepower to beat the Zags. Pepperdine's leading scorer here is junior John Zidek, averaging just over 12 points a game. And realistically, what I see struggling for them, they're 42% from the field and 32% from 3. Very, very difficult to beat the Zags with the low percentages. You want to muddy that game up, but when you muddy up a tempo, you need to be efficient, and that just hasn't been their calling card this season.
Well, moving on to the Byu Cougars, this will be their last season in the West Coast Conference. Unless they're able to get something done this year, they will have made their entire journey through the WCC without a regular season or a WCC tournament championship, heading on to the Big 12 next season. That'll be a big deal for BYU football. I hope they're able to compete on the basketball level, but this is a BYU squad that they were able to rise all the way up to 12th in the rankings this season. They completely dismantled Oregon at the PK Invitational, the Phil Knight Invitational. At the time, you know, this was an Oregon team that people believed could potentially make a run to a Final Four. I think that we've cooled the jets on Oregon, find out maybe they're a little bit more of a pretender than a contender this season. Who knows? They can always turn things around. But BYU is now unranked after making a couple tough losses. Here's what we know about BYU. They're always going to play Gonzaga tough, especially in Provo. You know, I think you're going to schedule, and when we do this over-under, I think we're going to go by, like, where do we see these losses coming? And I will say this, like, Provo may be the most underrated college basketball environment in Division I basketball. That is an NBA arena. They fill that place. It is raucous. And so being able to get out of there will be a huge challenge for the Zags. But tell our viewers about this BYU squad, what they've done so far, and some players to look out for.
Yeah, BYU, man, like you said, they're going to play the Zags tough every year. And I think what BYU has done so well against the Zags, and are doing again this year, is they play a very deep team. They have 8 guys averaging 19 minutes a game or more, with the 9th player at 13 minutes a game. So they are not afraid to put bodies out on the floor, which really helps them. When you're running a fast tempo against Gonzaga, you need to stay fresh and be able to kind of afford some fouls on some other guys. So that's big for them. But everything else aside, they are led by Alex Barcelo. He is just an absolute flamethrower this year, averaging, I believe, just over 17, almost 18 points a game on 48.6% from 3. That's on 5 attempts per game. That percentage is good for 11th in the country. So, again, man, we talked about it with San Francisco. You need a dominant, aggressive scorer on the perimeter. Alex Barcelo is that guy. We've seen the Zags struggle with some switches on guards a little bit this year, so this will be an absolute test for them.
Gives you a little bit of flashbacks to that Alabama game. We talked about if you're going to beat Gonzaga, you got to make the three ball. You got to have a guy who goes off for maybe 5-6 threes. BYU definitely has that ability. And you also talk about them being able to go deep. This includes after losing senior Richard Harward for the season. This was essentially their number 2 center, a 6'11", 256-pound center that has a heart condition, will not play the rest of the season. We obviously are hopeful that he's able to get that cleared up. Basketball is such a second thing to what he's got going on.
No doubt. Yeah, health first.
You look at how you beat this Gonzaga team, and it's going deep. It's playing physical. I mean, we look at just historically, they've struggled against Florida State when they basically were running line changes at Gonzaga, getting up in them, playing physical, not worrying about the fouls. This is a Gonzaga team you can send to the line and be fine. And so I can promise you that BYU is going to be fine sending Drew Timme, sending Gonzaga to the free throw line. So being able to go 8-9 deep will be huge for BYU. Be very interesting to see how Gonzaga handles their rotation against that sort of depth. Moving on to our next team, and that's Santa Clara. I know this is a team that not a lot of attention's being given to when we talk about a potential four-bid WCC league. This isn't a team that gets mentioned, but I think that the record isn't as vindictive as the talent of this team. They've had some injury issues. They're getting healthy. Tell us about why Santa Clara could be a team that sneaks up on a lot of people, and including Gonzaga fans.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're kind of left out of the four-bid conversation here. But this is a team that started out the season, had a couple of really good wins over Stanford and Nevada.
Yeah.
And then their second leading scorer, Josip Vrankic, gets mono. He missed 8 games, and that really hurt them. They dropped some games in there that I don't think they drop otherwise. Gives them to that, brings them to that 10-5 record here. But this team is led by Jalen Williams, averaging almost 19 points a game, 3.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 38% from 3. You've also got Josip Vrankic, we just talked about, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. And they're not done yet. You've got Keyshawn Justice at 15 points a game, and he's a 43% three-point shooter on 90 attempts through the season. So high-volume guy, good shooter. Again, not necessarily in that four-bid conversation unless they can, pull off something miraculous here in league play. But this is definitely a team you need to watch out for. I think that they are going to make things difficult, not only for the Zags, but I could see them kind of throwing a monkey wrench in the plans of some other league teams here as we go on.
I mean, you look at that schedule. If Vrankic doesn't miss those games, this is probably a 12-3, even 13-2 ball club that's getting a lot more respect. And so, Zag fans, if there's one team to keep your eye out for that is going to sneak up and potentially, if this team's going to drop a game to a team that no one saw coming, this is Santa Clara. So we always have one thing we always want to do on this show is if we can make you sound smarter to your friends, whether it be, sitting around at home or watching the game at the bar, maybe tell them to look out for Santa Clara a little bit. I think it'll be a close game. Moving on to Pacific, this is another team that we're not going to give too much focus to. This is a 5-9 team on the season, has really struggled. I think that for Pacific, just to be honest here, for them to be able to keep it close with this top 5 Gonzaga team would be a big thing. I don't believe they have the firepower to beat the Zags.
No.
But quickly give us this Pacific Tiger roster and what they've done so far this year.
Tough, man. It's been a tough season for the Tigers. They've lost 6 of their last 7. They really don't have a dominant scorer. They have 3 scorers between 10 and 11 points a game. Those are their top scorers. As a team, they're only averaging 66 points a game, 34% from 3. Like you said, I think if they can keep it close with Gonzaga, that's a win for them. That's really what you're looking at. They just don't have the firepower. I mean, you'd have to play a great defensive game and still play your season average on offense to make something happen. And I just can't see that happening for Pacific this time. So we'll hope that they improve a little bit for next season.
We saw it versus Tarleton. We've seen that, inferior teams can slow this Gonzaga team down, but you have to have the ability to score. And had Tarleton, I'll tell you what, that Tarleton game, have they had St. Mary's offensive firepower, Gonzaga loses that game.
Yeah.
And so do I believe that Pacific has the ability to slow Gonzaga down? I do. I think you said it perfectly. I don't think they have the firepower to keep up with the Zags. Moving on to Portland. They are 9-6 on the season. We have a very familiar face. If you're from Spokane or Eastern Washington. That's Shante Legans, who went from the Eagles to Portland to be the Pilots head coach. Did bring a couple Eags with him as well. Not a team that is expected to be in the upper half of the WCC this season. But tell me what Shante's been able to do so far in his first season at the helm for the Pilots.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's coming in at 9-6 so far. They started the season 7-2 before losing 4 of their last 6 going into league play. So a little bit tough. Hopefully they can put that back together. He had a great start to the season. But this is a team, they really share the ball. 4 starters averaging over 11 points a game, led by Tyler Robinson at almost 16 points a game, 36% from 3. And they are an elite free throw shooting team at 81%. So, those are things you kind of look for. I mean, if you're going to muddy up a game against Gonzaga, you're going to hope you get to the line. You got to be able to knock down those free throws. But again, I don't think Robertson is as dominant on the perimeter as they need. It's really what you need against this Zags team. It's with the rim protection they have with Chet, the chances of you going inside and beating them inside, not great. Zags are one of the best 2-point scoring teams in the country. You've got to be able to score from outside. Starts with a dominant ball handler, and I just don't see Portland pulling that off. But I do think Shante has them on the rise here in league, so hopefully we see them continue to build.
When you talk about WCC basketball, over the last 10, 15 years, you really talk about 2 teams. You talk about Gonzaga and you talk about St. Mary's. I mean, this is, if Gonzaga has a true rival, it is St. Mary's. This is a team, we talked about it in the beginning of the video. The Zags have won 9 straight regular season titles. 2012, who won it? St. Mary's. Zags have won 2 straight tournament titles. Who won it that year? St. Mary's. And so, this is, last year, I feel like this rivalry didn't really live up to expectations. This was a historic Gonzaga squad. They dismantled St. Mary's in the WCC tournament, took care of them 3 times on the year. But this is a team that's 12-3 on the season. We know this about Randy Bennett and his squad. They are going to try and muddy up the game. They're going to try to slow down the tempo, which we've seen teams be able to dictate the tempo versus this Gonzaga squad. Here's the good news about playing St. Mary's is there's good news and bad news. The good news is you don't have to face them for almost 2 months. The bad news is you have to face them twice in 2 weeks at the end of the season. And so this is a team that we know they're going to, play a very physical. They're going to try to slow down the game, play that sort of style versus Gonzaga. But tell me about Randy Bennett's squad that he has on this season and how you could see them, posing some problems for Gonzaga.
Sure. I mean, this is a team coming in at 12-3. Don't really have a bad loss per se. Of their 3 losses, one was to Wisconsin in the finals at the Maui Gym by only 6 points, and then San Diego State and Colorado State. So not a terrible loss. Colorado State, of course, not maybe great, but they're not a terrible team there still. They do have wins over Notre Dame and Oregon.
In that Maui Gym, yeah.
Yep, and this is a team that really shares the ball out there. They've got 5 players averaging 9 points or more per game. So, I mean, they've got a number of different guys that can step up and score the ball for them. They haven't had one really dominant scorer throughout every game. Matthias Tass leads the team at 12.7 points per game. He is, of course, a 6'10 big. So, if he can body up Timmy and make things tough, that obviously is a huge piece to starting off getting a win against Gonzaga. But again, Drew Timmy last year had 18-8 against him in the WCC finals, or tourney, kept him to, I believe, 8-4. Yep. So Timmy won that matchup. So Tass really has to come out this year. He needs to win that matchup if they want to make it happen. And outside of that, I mean, you've got Tommy Kusi, which we've seen him go off before. Of course, didn't happen last year. But as you said, man, that was just a historic Gonzaga squad. So no fault to St. Mary's on that.
Yeah, he's shooting 49% from 3 this season.
He is. A little bit lower volume, but we know he can knock it down. And and I think a lot of times when you look at a rival matchup like this, I don't focus on percentages too much because we've seen it time and time again. There's always that guy out there, whether they can or can't shoot. There's always somebody who's going to play better than their stats in a rival game. It just happens. You've got the emotion out there. You've got that fire within you. So, again, you've got to keep your eye on this team, but the perimeter will definitely need to step up Logan Johnson, of course, he's a plus defender. He will have to play well against Nemhard. But they're really going to need to find a dominant scorer. That's what I think needs to happen for St. Mary's in order for them to make something happen here.
We've said time and time again on this channel, Drew Timme last season carried this team on his back all the way, honestly, through the Final Four. Was just dominant, could get whatever he wanted, especially in WCC play last year. And so we talk about good Timme, bad Timme. Like, will Drew Timme be able to get that confidence back, establish his low post position, and take over the WCC? If he's scoring 18 points versus St. Mary's, that's a huge deal, right? And so I think that's part of it. What I think about is, I don't think there's a team more suited on the defensive end to slow down Gonzaga than St. Mary's. If I could take St. Mary's defense and put BYU's offense on the same team, I think that team
That'd be scary.
Gives Gonzaga fits. But here's the deal with St. Mary's. I think that they are very talented defensively. I think that Logan Johnson can muddy it up against Andrew Nemhard and this Gonzaga front court. I do believe that they can cause some problems down low on defense. I'm not sure that they have the offensive firepower this year to beat Gonzaga. We saw that a little bit last year. And so while I know they are expected to be one of those potential 4 bids, I think if the WCC is going to be a 4-bid league, St. Mary's has to be a part of that to happen. And so one last thing I want to talk about before we get into our predictions is one X factor we've mentioned before on this show that I believe is a huge deal for WCC play, and that is, will we see Dom Harris on the floor? We know he's out of his walking boot. Again, this is a kid who is potentially the best three-point shooter on this Gonzaga team. And so if he can be on this rotation, if he can get healthy enough to play in the WCC, I believe that will be a complete game changer for this team. A couple other, brief observations we've seen recently is we have seen this coaching staff make some changes with rotations, subs. One thing that's been very interesting really after that Alabama game is we've seen Drew Timme come off the floor earlier than Chet Holmgren. That has not been the case up to that point this season. And then who comes in? That's Anton Watson, who's been coming in and playing the 5. They've been taking Chet and moving him more to like the 4. So very interesting to see this coaching staff make some changes, make some adjustments. Here's what I want to do. I think what we do is we set kind of an over-under for WCC play. I'm gonna put it at a loss and a half. If this is a 4-bid league, we're saying we got 3 teams who the Zags play twice. We also know about Santa Clara. So I'm going to set the over-under at 1.5 losses in league play for this Gonzaga team. What are you taking?
It's a tough one, man. Spent a lot of time thinking about this, looking at the schedule, wavering back and forth on it. And let me start with this. I would love to be wrong.
Yes.
Love to be wrong. I am taking the over on this. I think it's 2 losses in league play for the Zags. I do think they both come in the regular season, and I think those 2 losses, they're going to sweep St. Mary's. Calling that right now, I do believe they will sweep St. Mary's. They will drop on the road to San Francisco and BYU. I think both these teams have the backcourts that you need, and they have the ability on defense to muddy it up just enough. I think they're going to cause problems. So, again, this is not a knock on Gonzaga. These are very good teams. The league is getting a lot better. But I do think we see this be at least a 3-bid league this year as those 2 take 1 away.
With most of our viewers being Gonzaga fans, I think we tend to try to pick the Zags when we can. I don't think we've ever, in a game preview, picked against the Zags on this show. So when you say it,
it's been a good 14 months of basketball.
Might have kept you up a little bit at night. I'm going to take the over as well. And that's just that we've seen this team be vulnerable. I'm not going to get as specific. I think that, I expect them to drop the game at BYU. I'll give you that one. I think that between Santa Clara, San Francisco, St. Mary's, BYU, I think that I would take the over. So you're telling me, let's say they do drop 2 in league play, and just to be clear here, you are expecting them. I mean, if they do beat St. Mary's both games, at least they're going out with 2 big wins at the end of the season. You're telling me that you expect them to win the WCC tournament championship, and so this is a team that would go into the NCAA tournament with 4 losses, and that's most likely a 2 seed for this Gonzaga program. And so it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be, a very tough WCC. We know that COVID's going to also play a part of that. How many games will they get in? We could see some very interesting scheduling, possibly, teams playing 3 games in 1 week. That'll be something to watch as well. Let us know down in the comments. Over-under is 1.5. Are you taking the over? Are you taking the under? And who do you think, if the Zags are going to drop a game or 2 in league play, who do you see that being against? We want to hear it from you. As always, if you're liking the content we're putting out, make sure to like this video, subscribe. We'll be putting out weekly videos all the way through the NCAA tournament for this Gonzaga team. Stay warm out there. Like I said, it's 11 degrees in Spokane, Washington. Bundle up, but we are getting warmed up for WCC play.